What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another tutorial video. Today I wanted to go over switch statements in C Sharp. If you don't know what switch statements are, why they would be useful to you, I think you'll find this video useful, and you'll probably end up using them in the future depending on what you're doing. And I just want to say thanks to all the new subscribers and viewers. I've been getting more views and subscribers, and if you like this sort of content, feel free to go ahead and subscribe and like. And I want to thank you before you even do that. That'd be great. So let's go ahead and talk about the basic if, else if, and then else, right? So let's say I have an integer num, and it's going to be 3, just for our purpose. It can be whatever you want. And we're going to say if num is equal to 3, we're going to do this, right? We're going to do this. And, okay, well, what if it's equal to 4? So we do else if num is equal to 4, do this instead, right? I think you guys get the point. We can continue doing this. We can do this for 5. If we wanted to, and then 6. And so on and so forth. And at the very end, maybe we have this thing where it doesn't equal any of these. We have a basic else. And maybe that means it's invalid. So tell the user it's invalid. Or something like that. You guys get the point. This doesn't have to be an integer, of course. It can be any thing that you want to check. It can be any kind of condition. Maybe num is greater than 3, or num is less than 3. Who knows what the condition might be? That's all based on what you're doing. You might be asking, well, is there an easier way than having this if statement and then this else if, and then there could be tens of these stacked upon each other until we get to the else, right? And that's where a little thing called the switch statement comes in. So a switch statement is like a more condensed version, in my mind, that's how I describe it, of a really long if, else statement. Of course, you don't need the else, that's optional. But yeah, let's just go ahead and show you what a switch statement looks like, and then we'll go ahead and talk about it. So you start off by saying the switch keyword, okay, and then in parentheses, we put in what we're checking. So in our case, it's num. This is what we're going to compare. And then inside of the switch statement, we have what are called cases. So we have case 3 colon. So this means that if num is 3, the case where num is 3 colon, do this. So maybe we'll do console.writeLine. Num is 3. And then we're going to break. And the reason we break is we can have multiple cases, but we don't want to go through all that. That's just time consuming, and that's not necessary because we've already said, okay, well, it's 3, and we did this. Therefore, we don't need to continue through the rest of the cases. And then we can go to 4. And if you want, maybe it's easier to read if we put a space in between that. And then we can do, actually, let me just copy this. So cool little tip, if you just hit Control-C in Visual Studio on the line that you're on, you don't have to highlight anything, and then paste it below, it'll actually copy that whole line for you, which is great. And then we can just change this to 4 and then break. And then we can copy this and go and so on and so forth, right? And you can see how this is a little easier to read than a bunch of if-else statements, because with those curly braces and all that, it kind of gets iffy. And of course, you can have multiple things. You don't have to just have one line of code, and you can do this and you can do that. It just has to be indented after the first one, after the case statement. Okay? So I didn't put semicolons after break. And then at the end, kind of like the else, we can have our default. And that's simply by just putting the default keyword colon and saying console.writeLine. Oh, I didn't put in quotes. Num is not acceptable. Where's Ibble? the questions in life. I don't know. Okay. So what this is saying, once again, is we have this whole giant switch statement. And then we have cases inside of those. Each case is like a comparison. We're comparing what's in the parentheses up here. So if it's 3, we'll do this. If it's 4, we'll do this. If it's 5, we'll do this. If it made it all the way down here, because it didn't follow any of these cases, then it's going to go by default. And of course, the default's not necessary. You can take that out, and it'll just continue down throughout the rest of your code. So let's see what happens when we run this with num equal to, and actually before I do that, it's going to spit it out. Oops. There we go. It's going to spit out what it's going to say before we even read it, and then it's going to close. So I put that there. If we want, let's go ahead and change this to console.readline. So we can enter what our value is going to be. And we can do int dot parse. And we can do some validation, but I don't think that's necessary for this little tutorial. So it's going to read in what we give it. It's going to turn that into an int. That's what int.parse does. It just takes it and turns it into an int where it's valid. And then it's going to run through this switch statement. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. Okay, so this is where we're going to enter our number. I'm going to put 4 and then hit enter. And it's going to say num is 4. And then if we hit enter again, it closes. Okay. If I do it again, let's put a number that isn't a case, so like 16. That's going to go to default because it didn't follow 5, it didn't follow 4, it didn't follow 3. But at the very end, we have a default, so it's going to end up there. This is like our safety net at the very bottom. And let's see what happens when we don't put that default. Okay. We're going to see that nothing is going to appear. Actually, let's make it spit out something at the end. Console.writeline, no default. Okay. So I'm going to put 16 again, and then it read out no default because it didn't follow any of these cases, so it just continued on after the switch statement. So that is the basic switch statement. Hopefully you found that useful, and hopefully you can use that to replace a bunch of else if statements if you find that in your code when you're checking a bunch of different conditions. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.